I feel like we're just on an AI roller coaster that is just out of control right now. So let's just slow it down.
In this type of content, when you read something like that, it's obviously full of corporate buzzwords and whatnot to make themselves sound smarter than what they really are. But
I don't believe that.
A noble spirit embiggens the smallest man.
Embiggens? Never heard that word before I moved to Springfield.
I don't know why. It's a perfectly cromulent word.
On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk OpenAI, focusing in December, and light and sound serenity. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 511, December Focus. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matthew Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Mr. Ian Bryant. He's the technical manager of IES Communications. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And next, we have the one and only Mr. Bob Archer. He is the new account manager at Canby Communications. Congratulations. And how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you, Matt.
We're all super happy that you've landed well with a good friend of all of ours in Katie and the team over at KMB. All right, gentlemen, let's kick this off with the creepiest story that we've covered in a long time. This comes to us from CE Pro. OpenAI is revealing progress on a minimal context-aware device with potential industry implications. They have been making a move, OpenAI that is, has been making a move into hardware, and supposedly Sam Altman, who's their CEO, has seen a couple of prototypes, and he's calling the early work jaw-dropping. And this is a collaboration between OpenAI and the company they bought earlier this year called I.O., which is Johnny Ives of iPhone fame over at Apple. They bought that company for $6.4 billion. This is supposed to be a simpler alternative to today's phone-driven world. Ian, I want to start with you. Obviously, we don't know what this is, form factor or a application yet, because it's probably, I would argue, maybe the closest guarded secret right now in the world of tech. But likely it's going to either have some form of sensor-based format or a really, really good version of an Echo Show. I don't really know. When you see this, when you follow this, the ability for them to have a bunch of polls, whether it's internal sensors or external devices that they can pull data from and utilize in, some form of OpenAI ChatGPT thing. Is this exciting for you? Is this discouraging, encouraging, scary? Where do you sit on this?
All of the above.
Perfect.
Honestly, when I read this, when I saw the title at the beginning of this article, I had so many thoughts going through my mind. The very first one was actually something they covered at the end of the article. My concern was the security concerns of having potentially something running an AI bot of some kind with access to devices and subsystems in your home. Kind of creeps me out. We know that some of these AI bots, depending on if it's going to be OpenAI, if it's going to be the external version, an internal version, a more secure version, but being able to, look at your cameras and have access to your security system and control your HVAC and your lights. And it's just a little scary. I think we've all seen enough movies where things in the home go awry because something is taking over it. So, that was my first one. The second one was, we already have a lot of machine learning algorithms in the control systems that we put in our homes. We have cameras that are already running some sort of an AI algorithm to do people tracking and package tracking and notifications. And we have lighting systems that can monitor temperature and ambient light to adjust shades and dim lights already. I mean, we have these really great capabilities. I don't see how another level of management on top of that to decide when it thinks you need to turn your TVs on or off is necessary. Just one of those things where it's just going a little bit too far. Though I'm making assumptions on top of this, I have no idea if that's actually what they're going to be planning on doing. I would think that if there was some sort of a tie-in with with the integration automation inside of a smart home, that maybe there would be talk of like the new Matter protocols or Apple HomeKit or something where they're going to be tying in with protocols that our manufacturers are currently using in order to web this together. You're going to have to get the manufacturers on board to play with it. So there's going to have to be some sort of a connection there. But we talked about it earlier. I personally think it's going to be more of a personal area network type of device that's going to be, like you said, like a wearable or something that's going to maybe give you some minimalistic, you're going to voice control maybe some small stuff, something that's teeny tiny, like you said, maybe a listening speaker or a smart speaker that's just a teeny little device that you wear that talks to you and controls some things. I don't see how they're going to be doing that something crazy. And I feel like we're just on an AI roller coaster that is just out of control right now. So let's just slow it down.
Yeah. A little calming for this industry would not be terrible.
Yeah.
Bob, when you see this, I kind of echo a lot of Ian's points, and I want to pull out the quoted philosophy of a calm, context-driven, low-friction interaction. I don't know if that's what the general populace actually wants. Like, I love having access to these things, even if it's on my phone, where it requires a trigger. I'm very concerned about the low friction quotation here. Is this a push to have AI always with you and always running?
I'm sure that's probably their goal. I mean, in this type of content, when you read something like that, it's obviously full of corporate buzzwords and whatnot to make themselves sound smarter than what they really are. But
I don't believe that.
Yeah, no, of course. I believe everything that they hoist upon us. But, I would think that realistically in the back of their minds, they have to know that at some point people are going to push back on this stuff, that maybe it's okay to live a bit analog and that not everybody wants instant turnkey connectivity to whatever their technology system is in their home.
Yeah, that's a great point. Ian, just before we leave this, my concern, if this is something that is running all the time active, and every time you say something or you do something in your home, it's constantly providing some level of feedback. We're already seeing a massive energy crunch due to AI, right? A couple of the leading AI founders came out a couple months ago and said, for the love of God, stop thanking your AI. Every time you write back, thank you so much, it's using hundreds of gigawatts of power across the system to respond to that. Is that going to be a part of this concern?
If you have an AI system that is monitoring multiple key points in your house as input output points, whether your subsystems or sensors or something, then also listening and watching the amount of processing power it's going to require for a single home, I don't think it would qualify for lead status at that point. So, yeah,
what if it tells us it's qualified though?
It's a huge concern. I mean, again, and not only, like you said, the data privacy side of it, where is this data living at? Who has access to the data? And then on top of that is, it's a huge, I can't remember what it said. It's something like, one AI query is the equivalent of, having I'm just throwing out a light bulb on for 24 hours or something. There's some number, I have to look it up, but it's quite astounding how much power goes into a single query. So you can imagine how much power goes into monitoring an entire home or someone's activities all day long.
I was going to say, Matt, if I could throw in too, people complain when they get pixeled about when they talk to their wives about buying a new lawnmower or something. What's going to happen with this AI stuff when you take it to the next level, and never mind the small conversations you have, and then you see your topic, whatever you were talking about, in your internet searches. What's going to happen when you take that to the next step? And that goes to all that privacy you were talking about, Ian.
If we've all learned anything from corporate greed and data these days, it's that it's probably going to go to the worst idea that you could imagine.
Positive, man. Positive.
You've had me on this show before, and I'm very cynical when it comes to AI.
Oh, we're leading into the end of the year. We're supposed to be thinking warm and fuzzy thoughts. All right, let's talk about the end of the year. This comes to us from Residential Systems and Matt Bernath. December is your competitive advantage. He's written a really good article here talking about the 4 critical areas every custom integrator should focus on before 2026. The first being starting with subtraction, the hidden profit in your expenses, the collections conversations no one wants to have, and planning 2026 with actual data. I'm not going to give you any more information than that. Go read the article yourselves. Bob, let me start with you on this. Kind of the overarching theme here is that December is a month of cleanup, right? Finish up those projects, get those accounts receivables dealt with, whether your year end ends right, in December or not. Prep for next year, which again, you can't do if you've not cleaned up this year, as well as, finding all of those little hidden areas where you're wasting money. Is December, like the show's coming out on the 10th, is it too late now? Is there enough time left in the month, or do you need to start this process significantly earlier in the year so that you can actually take the time to do more than just a cursory glance, again, over your expenses?
I would say, yeah, ideally you would want to start this probably before the holidays even start. You think about any small business owner, you're trying to close out your year-end business. You've got your own personal family activities. If you've got young kids, they're going to recitals, they're doing this, they're doing that. You have office parties to go to and other family activities. December is an extremely busy time of year, and to add something else onto your plate, it might be asking for a bit much.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Ian, I do love the concept of starting to plan 2026 and using some actual data and some hard data, right? Not just we want to grow 25%, but actually pulling some information to determine that. What are the key things that you would look for when looking into a new year?
Oh, I mean, obvious profitability on projects, looking at pinpoints, time wasted on jobs, seeing if there's maybe products that you're using that are causing more issues than providing benefits to your customers. I mean, there's so much data that you could be collecting. And honestly, when I read this article, I think it's great, and it brings up a lot of great areas to focus on. My thought always continue to come back to doing this throughout the year in small percentages. You can always use the end of the year as a refocusing point. But come when you start your new year, put 15% of your time for your management team or your operations team to do all of these items. And then it's 15% a day and 15% a week and 15% a month, or whatever percentage works for you, setting aside the time to focus on some of these things. So at the end of the year, it's not like Bob was saying, it's, not trying to pack it in around the holidays. We also know that in residential CI, the customers that are getting their jobs close, that are going to be closed out towards the end of the year, they got to be done before Thanksgiving, or they got to be done before Christmas. So, I would say, use it as a good reflection point and a good way to start fresh, but then also block that time. And if a customer or project potentially may steal that time away from your team, say, look, well, we can't do that project. We have to reserve this time in order to have in order to not get lost through the year and stay up on your business management. I mean, it goes back to the core of operating a successful business, and it's not easy, especially the small businesses. It's just tough.
Yeah, I know in my couple of businesses, we've always tried to do this throughout the year, right? And best laid plans occasionally work. But we try to divide our December into wrapping up everything that can be wrapped, and recognizing which ones can't. Because I feel like sometimes that's often overlooked and not articulated to the clients well enough, that like our cutoff date is in 7 days. On the 15th, we do not do any major work on any projects, because if we're still at if we're not in the last 10%, it's not getting done anyways. So the client's going to hate us as we try to finish, and then come to them kind of with our tail between our legs on the 23rd and go, yeah, we can't turn this over yet. And that kind of alleviates some of that. But we do spend a lot of time in December doing wrap-ups, looking at things that we've missed and how we're going to address those next year. And then we take the first 2-3 weeks of January, which typically is a little slower, wrap anything that didn't get finalized, which makes our accountants happy, and use that to start to kind of implement any changes we're making for the next, or for that new year, right? And get that started off on the right foot, which is sometimes easier said than done. All right, let's hit our last story of the day. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today. Light, sound, and serenity in the Carolina mountains. Go read through this article. It's a interesting little, what's the term for this? Case study of a project in the Carolina foothills, or mountains, I guess, of a project that was completed with the help of one of Coastal Source's VPs of an exterior lighting project and audio system that was installed. Go look through it, go read through it. It's actually a pretty good case study, focusing on a couple of things, specifically that client-vendor relationship. And my personal favorite is the aesthetic of the project. Ian, let me start with you on this. We were talking about this pre-show. I'm always excited and intrigued when I see an outdoor project, specifically a lighting project. I was whining about lighting last week. I'm continuing to whine about lighting this week, where they took a less is more approach, right? There's a lot of fixtures in this. There's a lot of coverage, but it's not just blasted with a lot of mini spotlights that are just lighting up the whole stinking thing. How do you go about understanding the serenity aspect of this type of project, of creating something?
It's tough because the outdoor space is one that is often even touched. I mean, I'd say a high percentage of builders don't even really do any landscaping or spend any time. And then those that do are, they're bringing in landscape designers, just like you'd have an interior designer. There are landscape designers. And on top of that, then there are lighting designers that can focus on landscape. And it's, I think that those that understand a landscape that is peaceful and calm and balanced well know that it gives the people that live in the space a much more relaxing environment inside and out. And I think that's missing in a lot of residential environments. Outside is sod grass and big giant floodlights, and it's not, it's not very pleasing and appealing, and most people don't spend a lot of time. But when you've really gone through and you've invested the time and the money into a great landscape, which includes the lighting and audio that's not just big giant speakers blasting music, but well balanced and evenly dispersed, it can make a huge impact in how you spend time outside. I think this is a great article that goes in conjunction with your the show last week with Kat and Avi when you guys talked about lighting as well. It's something that integrators in the CI market really should focus more on.
I love the way you focused on the conversation and not my soapbox, which I promptly got on. Bob, when you look at this case study, they really did seem to focus on, creating that scene, creating that aesthetic. Is that something that our industry can actually figure out at some point, or is it only for is it only going to be properly implemented by a select few?
I think, in terms of outdoor lighting, we're probably still in the infancy of our particular market, adapting to it and offering sophisticated solutions. A few years ago, how many people were using lighting designers for interior work? And now it seems more and more common. And I wouldn't be surprised if we follow suit in a similar sort of manner outdoors. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the company, but there's an outdoor lighting design firm that recently entered the marketplace. And I'm going to use my old CE Pro hat here and say Paul Muto represented this particular company.
Okay.
I forget their name. But so, we're still in the early days of this. So, maybe in a year, more people start to utilize these services, because ultimately it's about keeping the customer happy.
Yeah.
And if we give them spaces that make them happy rather than selling them stuff, they're more likely to call you again for return business or repeat business.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to piggyback a little bit on something I said last week, where I bemoan the Miami home lighting scene, club scene that seems to happen a lot, and applaud the South Florida-ish area from a landscape standpoint, because we got family down there, so I'm down there fairly often. They've kind of figured out the aesthetic quite often down there, partially because, and I'll probably get harassed for this, but it's easier. Their foliage stays the same. I would argue that lighting design in anywhere north of the Mason-Dixon, where you have seasonal change, exterior lighting is more complicated than even interior lighting, because here we deal with, you can light coniferous trees and bushes one way, the way you light deciduous trees or bushes, etc., any foliage, that'll change as season to season. And your lighting has to complement it throughout the entire year. And it is something where, again, this is one of my little passions, which is why I soapbox on it. It takes a lot of knowledge of the landscape features anywhere where you have seasonal changes, to truly understand how to leverage and utilize that really, really well. But Bob, that was a great point of finding companies that do this, that can help you. All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. Thank you both for joining us. Bob, if people want to connect with you, learn more about KMB Communications, where can they do that?
They can go to kmbcomm.com.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Ian, if people want to connect with you, learn more about IES Communications, where can they do that?
Go to iescomm.com. That's iescomm.com, and or find me anywhere on LinkedIn or social media.
Excellent. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you for joining us as well. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on most of the socials. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation. This is Erin Marmoran of EdTech. The world of higher ed AV is growing rapidly. That's why each month we hear from the best and brightest from colleges and universities all over the U.S. Check out EdTech on AVNation.tv or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.